It's the most horniest time of the year, which means it is the perfect time to talk about romance plots. Don't you just love to see two characters in a plot finally hooked up at the end of it? It's adorable, but you know what the masses also love? Drama. Mix the two together, and you get Jerry Springer.
Jerry! Jerry! Jerry!
But you also get Family Guy, and there are lots of crazy crappy love drama to talk about, because if there's one thing people love more than love, it's drama, so join me. To women banging dogs, to attempted murder, here are some of the many romance plots of Family Guy. Our first love story comes from the season 14 episode called Take a Letter. The plot starts off with the wife, Lois, upset about Stewie's school, and wants to move him to a different one. So she goes to the post office to fill out a registration form for Stewie's new school, and wants to save money. That's when Cleveland offers her a job at the post office, to which Lois accepts, and just like that, Lois gets a job. Lois gets a crappy letter and asks Cleveland what to do with it. He asks her to throw it in a bin of unsended letters. Lois wants to organize the old letters to try and resend them. She goes through the bin, and she finds a suspicious letter, a letter from Peter who he tried to send to a woman.
Who the hell is Gretchen Mercer? And this is postmarked a week before our wedding.
Lois meets Gretchen, and lets her know Peter is taken. Gretchen tells Lois he was an old boyfriend of hers and she has nothing to worry about.
I was thinking the worst.
Oh, I understand, but you have nothing to worry about.
Gretchen then found out where Peter lived, and decides to blackmail Peter with a letter, about having doubts about marrying Lois days before their wedding.
I may have had some doubts before my wedding, but what guy doesn't? And now I know I made the right choice marrying Lois.
After chatting, and Peter still rejecting her, she goes full yandere mode. Meanwhile, at the post office, Lois hears the noise of a door opening, and guess who it is? She admits in a text message to Peter she is going to kill Lois. Peter rushes to the post office to stop Gretchen. She shows Lois the letter about Peter having doubts towards marrying Lois. And Lois gets offended, except, not really, and beats up Gretchen.
Finish her.
Get away from my husband.
Like a medium rare steak, that plot was well done, not great, not horrible, just, well done. If this story taught us anything, is that being single and desperate is such a beautiful combination. Our next story shows us that you're never too old to have fun. In Season 8's Brian's Got a Brand New Bag. The plot starts off with Peter being obsessed with the movie Roadhouse, so much so that he crashes into a girl's car. As Brian steps out of Peter's car, being the horn dog that he is, tells the girl that he has a dinner reservation for two, and asks her out, so he goes to her house, to try and pick her up, only for her mother to tell Brian that she went out with another guy. So then Brian asks the girl's mother out for dinner instead, and then he invites her over to the Griffin's house, and kiss. As Brian tries to sneak her out of the house, he gets caught by Lois, who proceeds to make fun of him for dating someone old. Brian wants to prove to the family dating someone old isn't a big deal, so he invites Rita over for dinner again, and the family wants her to spill the beans.
Hey, you know what we haven't done for a while? Go around the table and everybody says what year they were born.
So kids, how was your day?
I'm sure you've been asked. What do you tell them?
Oh, who can forget? I remember just crying like a baby.
Crying like a baby or crying like someone in college?
Say, Brian, on her answering machine, how long after her message is the beep?
How old are you? How old are you? 50! Okay, I'm 50! Let me know!
Brian comforts the old hag and decides to marry her and live with her.
Yes, Brian, I'll marry you.
Hey, Mom. Hey, Brian. We'll be upstairs.
Yo, Rita, you want in on this?
No, thanks. We just got engaged. I'm faithful to Brian now.
Whatever. This ain't even my whole night.
Just like most married couples, it's not too long until they start to hate each other. Brian bangs Rita.
Bam! 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 Bam!
And breaks her hip, causing him to take care of her all by himself. This leads into Brian feeling a bit depressed, causing him to hunt for fresh meat. Brian then cheats on Rita, and confesses it to her, only for her to reject him.
Please go.
But Rita...
Go! You can leave my apartment key on the Davenport. Leave them on the Schiffer robe.
You know what? Just take your keys. I don't know what the you're talking about.
If there's one takeaway from this story, that marriage is both a blessing and a curse. I wonder who else is next.
Giggity, 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 let's have sex.
Who else but Quagmire? You can't talk about Family Guy love stories without mentioning the reasonable, responsible, fun-loving pilot pervert himself. Quagmire has scored with many different women, but like a basketball player, what happens when he gets dunked on? Let's find out. This story is about Quagmire and his sweet love partner Sonia. No, not that Sonia, this Sonia. In the season 12 episode, Quagmire's Quagmire, Quagmire gets a virus on his laptop and he goes to a tech store to get it fixed. There, he meets Sonia. She solves the issue with his laptop, and finds out it has malware from him going onto very kinky sites, the same type of sites she's into, and they form a connection. Quagmire asks her out on a date and she accepts, and after Quagmire gets roofied by her, he falls in love with her. This leads to them fooling around on everything and everywhere, with Sonia wanting to push themselves further and further with their deviant act. Quagmire believes Sonia is taking the lewd acts too far, and tells her to turn it down, but she doesn't listen. Then Sonia beats up Quagmire.
You're hurting me, and I really need to clean out my trunk.
Oh, I'm gonna clean out your trunk. Giggity.
That's my word. That's my word.
After getting his ass kicked aggressively, she kidnaps him. Soon after, Quagmire's father informs Peter that Quagmire has been missing, so his father, Peter, and Joe go out and search for him. They found out that Sonia has a storage where she keeps Quagmire in. They ended up finding Quagmire, and before they could free him, Sonia appears. She takes the gun from Joe's hand, and tries to shoot Joe. Joe tackles her and handcuffs her.
Joe, that was so close. How'd you know the gun would jam?
It didn't jam, Peter. The gun was never loaded. Sort of had a mental breakdown in April. No more bullets for this guy.
Oh, Glenn, I was so worried about you. Are you all right?
No, I'm pretty far from all right.
What a nice story. Sonia is just the right amount of crazy to break even the horniest of guys. How beautiful. Speaking of crazy women, our last love story features the lovable smart punching bag known as Meg Griffin. Just like with Brian Griffin, Meg has always had unfortunate relationships. Will this next one be any different? Let's find out. In Season 9's The Hand That Rocks the Wheelchair, the plot starts with Bonnie asking Lois to take care of Joe and their daughter Susie while she goes out of town for a couple of days. Instead, Lois asks Meg to look after Joe and Susie, and persuades her to do it.
And Bonnie said you were very pretty.
But how did that come up?
Oh, you know, we were talking about pretty people, and I said Rachel Maddow, and she kind of took the baton from there and said Meg Griffin.
Manipulation Skills 101. Meg goes to Joe Swanson's house, and informs Joe she will be taking care of him. This leads to her doing the usual, laundry folding, diaper changing, kitchen cooking. After Meg helps Joe with exercise, she realizes she's late for school. That's when Joe decides to drive her to school. While in the car, they begin to chat, and Meg starts relating to Joe's feelings of inadequacy.
Hey, who's that? Your boyfriend?
Yeah, that's my boyfriend.
And now, wants to be with him. She proceeds to wear lots of dresses, including one of Bonnie's dresses, and thus, her obsession grows. Bonnie calls the house phone, and tells Meg she is flying back home first thing in the morning. Hearing this, Meg decides to sabotage Bonnie at the airport to prevent her from returning home, by planting a gun in her bag and getting her arrested.
This is Patrick Stewart. How are you liking the program so far?
While at a restaurant having dinner, Meg tells Joe how much she wants to ride him.
We haven't made love in 2 weeks.
You haven't made love ever.
Joe finally realizes what's going on and tells Peter and Lois Meg has a crush on him. As Joe believes he's over his head, he leaves. Meg appears, and tells Lois she has a crush on Joe. Lois tells Meg they have nothing in common. Meg then comes to terms and what she must do.
Fatality.
After throwing herself in front of Joe's police car, Joe takes her to the hospital, where Meg stops acting crazy. She apologized to both Joe and Bonnie for what she did, and they both forgave her. While this isn't exactly a romance episode, the woman sabotages herself over guy she barely knows trope just amuses me on a personal level. Moral of today's video: love makes people stupid. Thanks for watching.
Yes, we give the audience what it wants.
Smash that like button, and subscribe.